The crystalline vessel that emerged from the quantum fold above Earth's moon bore no resemblance to any human conception of spacecraft. Captain Lysander Voss watched from the observation deck of Luna Station as the alien ship materialized like a living jewel against the star field, its translucent hull pulsing with bioluminescent patterns that seemed to breathe with consciousness itself. 3 months had passed since first contact, 3 months of careful diplomatic exchanges and cultural revelations that had shattered humanity's understanding of its place in the cosmos. Zyxthera, the ethereal collective's primary ambassador, stood beside him in the station's artificial gravity field. The being's form was fluid, shifting between states that resembled liquid mercury and crystalline structure, communicating through harmonic frequencies that the translation matrices could barely interpret. "Your species intrigues us, Lysander Voss," the alien said, its voice like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Most civilizations require millennia to develop beyond their planetary boundaries. You have achieved interstellar capability in mere centuries." Dr. Serafina Kane approached from the laboratory complex, her face flushed with excitement and exhaustion. For weeks, she had been studying the technological marvels the ethereals had shared: fusion reactors the size of briefcases, matter converters that could transform raw hydrogen into complex alloys, and most remarkably, the quantum displacement drives that could fold spacetime like origami. "The applications are beyond anything we imagined," she said, her voice trembling. "We could reach Alpha Centauri in hours, not decades." Zyxthera's form shimmered with what humans had learned to recognize as amusement. "Your enthusiasm validates our assessment. The collective has decided to accelerate your development timeline." The alien gestured toward the viewing port where its ship hung in space. "We offer you complete technological integration. Faster-than-light capability, advanced defensive systems, quantum manufacturing matrices. Consider it a graduation gift." Captain Voss felt a chill despite the station's warmth. "Why?" he asked. "What do you expect in return?" His military training had taught him that gifts from advanced civilizations rarely came without strings attached. The ethereals had been generous with knowledge but carefully vague about their motivations. "The galaxy faces challenges that require diversity of approach," Zyxthera replied, its harmonics taking on subtle undertones that the translation system struggled to convey. "Your species possesses qualities that may prove valuable in the times ahead. Creativity under pressure. Adaptability in crisis. The capacity for rapid innovation when survival is threatened." Dr. Kane exchanged glances with Captain Voss. "You're talking about war," she said quietly. It wasn't a question. The ethereal's form solidified into something more humanoid, a gesture they had learned indicated serious communication. "Not war as you understand it. Something far more complex. There are forces in the galaxy that view consciousness itself as an aberration to be corrected. They have been silent for eons, but their stirring has been detected. When they emerge, established civilizations will respond with established tactics. We require something unprecedented." "You want us as weapons," Voss said, his voice hard. "We want you as yourselves," Zyxthera corrected. "Untempered by the caution that age brings. Unconstrained by the wisdom that prevents necessary risks. Humans possess a unique capacity for controlled aggression and innovative destruction that could prove decisive." Through the viewing port, Earth hung like a blue marble in the void, peaceful and unaware of the cosmic currents that were about to sweep over it. Serafina thought of her daughter playing in the gardens of New Geneva, of the millions of children who would inherit whatever decision was made in this sterile station orbiting humanity's ancient companion. "The choice is yours," the ethereal continued. "Accept our gifts and join the galactic community as equals, with all the responsibilities that entails. Or remain as you are, protected but limited, until the coming storm either passes or consumes everything you hold dear. Captain Voss looked at Dr. Kane, seeing his own conflicted thoughts reflected in her eyes. They were being offered godlike power by beings whose true motivations remained opaque. But the alternative was ignorance in the face of cosmic threat, helplessness disguised as innocence. How long do we have to decide? Serafina asked. Zyxtheros form pulsed with urgent colors. The decision has been made by your mere presence here, by your questions, by your fear and excitement. You will take our gifts because you are human, and humans cannot resist reaching for the next rung of the ladder, even when they cannot see where it leads. In the silence that followed, all three beings contemplated the weight of inevitability, each understanding that this moment would be remembered as either humanity's greatest triumph or its final mistake. 6 months after the ethereal revelation, the shipyards of Mars hummed with impossible activity. Admiral Thaddeus Grimm walked through the construction bays where humanity's first true warships were taking shape, their hulls gleaming with alien alloys that could shrug off stellar radiation and kinetic impacts that would vaporize conventional materials. The fusion of human engineering principles with ethereal technology had produced vessels that looked like predators born in the void, all sharp angles and aggressive geometries that spoke to something primal in the human psyche. Commander Orion Vale stood beside the prototype's primary weapon array, his augmented reality display showing power flow patterns that would have been incomprehensible to any human 6 months earlier. The quantum pulse cannons are exceeding all projections, he reported, his voice carrying a mixture of professional satisfaction and underlying unease. We've achieved a 97% efficiency in converting dark matter into directed energy. Each shot carries the equivalent yield of a hydrogen bomb, but focused to a beam width of 3 millimeters. Grimm nodded, though his weathered face showed none of Vale's enthusiasm. At 62, the Admiral had seen enough military revolutions to recognize the dangerous intoxication that came with overwhelming technological advantage. What about defensive capabilities? He asked, running his hand along the hull plating that felt warm to the touch, as if the ship itself were alive. The adaptive shielding system responds to incoming threats faster than human reflexes can register, Vale continued, calling up holographic displays that showed the ship's electromagnetic envelope. Kinetic projectiles are deflected by gravitational fields, energy weapons are absorbed and redistributed through the whole matrix. We've essentially created vessels that can survive direct hits from nuclear weapons and respond with firepower that could crack a moon. Dr. Serafina Kane emerged from the engineering section, her hands still trembling from her latest experiment with the quantum displacement drive. She had aged years in these past months, her hair showing silver streaks that hadn't existed during the first ethereal contact. We've achieved stable fold space generation, she announced, though her tone carried none of the celebration such a breakthrough warranted. We can now transit between star systems in less than 4 hours. Grimm studied her carefully. Serafina had been the most enthusiastic supporter of the technology transfer, but something had changed in her demeanor over the past weeks. What's troubling you, Doctor? He asked gently. She gestured toward the viewports where Earth hung in the distance, its surface now dotted with the lights of orbital elevators and manufacturing platforms that had sprouted like mushrooms after rain. The rate of change is unprecedented in human history. We've gone from chemical rockets to faster-than-light travel in less than a year. Our social structures, our philosophy, our basic understanding of reality, none of it has had time to adapt. Commander Vale frowned, his youthful optimism clashing with her concerns. Adaptation is what humans do best. We've always been quick to embrace new tools, new weapons, new possibilities. Have we? Serafina challenged. Or have we always been quick to use new tools for old purposes? Every advancement in human history has been turned toward conflict within a generation. Fire became Greek fire. Chemistry became gunpowder. Nuclear physics became atomic weapons. Now we have the power to shatter planets, and we're mounting it on ships designed for war. Admiral Grimm walked to the viewport, watching as a squadron of the new fighters performed maneuvers that would have liquefied human pilots if not for the inertial dampening fields. The craft moved like living things, twisting through impossible angles, accelerating from standstill to significant fractions of light speed in seconds. "The ethereals warned us about threats we can't yet comprehend," he said quietly. "Maybe rapid militarization is the only rational response. Or maybe it's exactly what they wanted," Serafina replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've been studying their culture, their history as much as they'll share. The ethereals are ancient, patient, and incredibly sophisticated. They've survived multiple galactic civilizations by being adaptable, by finding ways to make themselves useful to whatever dominant power emerges." Vale stepped forward, his expression hardening. "You're suggesting they're manipulating us?" "I'm suggesting they're grooming us," she corrected. "Think about it. They appear just as our technology reaches a critical threshold. They offer us exactly the kind of advancement that appeals to our nature. They hint at threats that require exactly the kind of response we're naturally inclined to provide. And now we're building the most powerful military force in known space." The three humans stood in silence, watching as automated systems guided another warship toward completion. Around them, the industrial might of an entire species was being redirected toward preparing for a war they didn't understand against enemies they'd never seen. Admiral Grimm finally spoke, his voice heavy with the weight of command decisions that would echo through history. "Whether we're being manipulated or not, the die is cast. We have these capabilities now, and we can't unknow what we know. Our choice is how to use them." In the distance, warning lights began flashing as the first human vessel prepared for its maiden voyage to the stars, carrying with it the hopes and fears of a species that had learned to reach beyond its grasp, but had yet to learn the wisdom of restraint. The Discovery came through automated deep space sensors positioned at the edge of the Sol system, their quantum-enhanced detection arrays picking up gravitational anomalies that suggested massive objects moving through fold space. Captain Lysander Voss stood in the command center of humanity's newest flagship, the HSS Prometheus, as warning signals cascaded across his tactical displays. What they were seeing defied all previous contact protocols established with the ethereals. 12 distinct signatures, reported Lieutenant Commander Nia Torch, her fingers dancing across haptic interfaces that would have been incomprehensible to any human a year ago. Mass estimates suggest vessels significantly larger than our capital ships. They're not ethereal, the energy signatures are completely different. Her voice carried the controlled tension of a professional trying to process something that challenged her understanding of galactic civilization. Commander Orion Vale moved between stations, coordinating response protocols with the efficiency that had made him Admiral Grimm's chosen deputy. "All human vessels report ready status. We have 47 ships in immediate response range, another 112 that can reach us within 6 hours. He paused, studying the tactical projection. "Sir, these aren't exploratory vessels. The formation patterns suggest military configuration." Lysander felt the weight of first contact protocols pressing against his training. The ethereals had provided extensive cultural databases covering dozens of galactic civilizations, but these signatures matched none of the known species. "Dr. Kane, what's your analysis of their technology base?" Serafina looked up from her science station, her face pale but determined. In the months since the first human warships had launched, she had thrown herself into understanding the broader galactic ecosystem, driven by growing concerns about humanity's rapid militarization. The energy patterns suggest technology at least equivalent to what the ethereals provided us, possibly more advanced. But there's something else. Their ships are generating some kind of interference field that's making detailed scans impossible. The main display flickered as new data streams arrived from the perimeter sensors. The unknown fleet had dropped out of fold space at the edge of the heliosphere, maintaining position rather than advancing toward the inner system. Their formation was perfect, geometrically precise in a way that suggested either artificial intelligence or a species with radically different concepts of individual initiative. "Incoming transmission," announced Communications Officer Zara Blackwood, her augmented hearing implants allowing her to process frequencies far beyond normal human range. "It's not directed at us specifically, they're broadcasting on multiple bands simultaneously. Translation matrices are having difficulty with the linguistic structures." Lysander nodded toward Dr. Kane. Can you make sense of it? Serafina worked frantically with the translation algorithms, combining ethereal language databases with human linguistic analysis techniques. Gradually, meaning began to emerge from the alien transmissions. They're calling themselves the Cathani hegemony, she said, her voice growing more concerned as she parsed the message. They're demanding to know why this system is generating what they term unauthorized evolutionary acceleration signals. Commander Vale stepped forward, his hand instinctively moving toward his sidearm. They're talking about our technology integration with the ethereals. More than that, Serafina continued, her face now genuinely frightened. They're specifically referencing probability cascade violations and temporal manipulation protocols. I think they're accusing us of changing the normal course of galactic development. The implications hit Lysander like a physical blow. The ethereals had presented their gift as a simple technological transfer, but if other galactic powers viewed it as some kind of violation of cosmic law, humanity might have unknowingly become the center of an interstellar incident that could escalate beyond their comprehension. Sir, we're receiving a secondary transmission, Blackwood reported. This one is directed specifically at us, and it's much clearer. They're requesting immediate communication with what they call the prime manipulator species responsible for the unauthorized enhancement. They want to talk to the ethereals, Vale translated grimly. No, Serafina said quietly, her analysis of the linguistic patterns revealing something more ominous. They want to talk to us. The translation algorithms are suggesting that the Cathani consider us the primary violators, not the ethereals. From their perspective, we're the ones who accepted the technology transfer and began rapid military expansion. Lysander studied the tactical display, where human warships were moving into defensive positions around Earth and Mars. Each vessel represented the pinnacle of their new capabilities, armed with weapons that could devastate planetary surfaces and shielded against attacks that would have annihilated their previous generation of spacecraft. But facing an unknown alien fleet with superior numbers and potentially equivalent technology, their advantages suddenly seemed fragile. Captain, Vale said quietly, Admiral Grimm is requesting priority communication. The ethereals have gone silent, their embassy stations aren't responding to any attempts at contact. The realization settled over the command crew like a cold shroud. Humanity had been given godlike power and had responded by building the most formidable military force in their corner of the galaxy. Now they faced the possibility that their benefactors had vanished, leaving them to answer for changes they barely understood to aliens whose motivations remained completely opaque. Lysander straightened, feeling the weight of species-level responsibility settling on his shoulders. Open a channel to the Cathani fleet, he ordered. Let's find out what they want and what they think we've done. The holographic projection that materialized in the center of the Prometheus's command bridge was unlike anything in humanity's xenological databases. The Cathani representative stood nearly 3 meters tall, its form combining organic and mechanical elements in ways that suggested a civilization that had long ago transcended the boundaries between biology and technology. Its face, if it could be called that, was a complex arrangement of sensory organs and communication nodes that shifted and reconfigured as it spoke. I am Nexarch Vex Hanna of the Cathani hegemony, the being announced, its voice transmitted through quantum-entangled communication arrays that made the words seem to emerge directly from the air around them. We have monitored the probability cascade emanating from this system for the equivalent of your measurement, 7 months, 14 days, 6 hours. The violations you have committed against temporal stability protocols are unprecedented in this galactic sector. Captain Lysander Voss exchanged glances with Dr. Serafina Kane, whose pale complexion had grown even more pronounced as the translation matrices revealed the full implications of the Cathani's words. Commander Orion Vale positioned himself at the tactical station, his hands hovering over weapons controls that could unleash destruction on a cosmic scale, though against an enemy of unknown capabilities. Nexarch Vex Hanna, Lysander replied, drawing on diplomatic protocols hastily adapted from ethereal contact procedures. Humanity is unfamiliar with the temporal stability protocols you reference. We have acted only to defend ourselves against threats we were warned about by our previous contact species. The Chthoni's form shifted, sensory organs realigning in patterns that suggested intense scrutiny. The ethereal collective informed you of threats requiring military response, yes. They provided advanced technology to accelerate your species' development from primitive chemical propulsion to faster-than-light capability within a single orbital period. Seraphina stepped forward, her scientific training overriding her fear. That's correct. They warned us about forces that view consciousness as an aberration to be corrected. They said established civilizations would respond with established tactics, but that humanity's innovative approach might prove decisive. The ethereal spoke truth, Vexhana replied, but incomplete truth. The threats they described are real. The void architects have indeed begun their awakening cycle. But the probability mathematics of effective resistance require specific developmental patterns among emerging species. Your rapid advancement violates those patterns. Commander Vale frowned, his tactical mind parsing the implications. You're saying our military buildup is making the situation worse? The Chthoni's form pulsed with colors that the translation system interpreted as affirmation mixed with condemnation. When species achieve faster-than-light capability through natural development, their military doctrines evolve gradually. They develop restraint, wisdom, understanding of consequences. Your species has been given weapons capable of stellar manipulation without the psychological framework to use them responsibly. Lysander felt a chill of recognition. Admiral Grimm had expressed similar concerns about the rapid pace of technological integration, but the pressure of preparing for unknown threats had overridden caution. What would you have us do? Abandon our defenses when facing cosmic-level threats? Observe, Vexhana commanded, and the holographic display shifted to show tactical projections of human fleet movements over the past months. The data was terrifyingly comprehensive, suggesting the Chthoni had been monitoring every human military development since the ethereal contact. Your species has constructed 174 vessels capable of planetary surface sterilization. You have established weapons platforms at 47 strategic locations throughout your star system. Your military personnel are being enhanced with neural interfaces that eliminate hesitation and moral constraint in combat situations. The accusations hung in the air like a physical weight. Seraphina realized with growing horror that from an outside perspective, humanity's response to the ethereal warnings looked less like defensive preparation and more like the emergence of a galactic-scale military threat. Your developmental pattern matches historical precedents for species that become void architect servants, Vexhana continued. Rapid militarization without philosophical framework. Technological advancement without ethical evolution. Preparation for total warfare without understanding of cosmic consequences. Vale's hands moved closer to his weapons controls. Are you threatening us? We are offering choice, the Chthoni replied. Submit to developmental restriction protocols. Accept hegemony oversight of your military capabilities. Allow gradual technological integration under supervised conditions. Or face classification as a probability cascade violator and the consequences such classification entails. The silence that followed was broken by new alerts from the sensor stations. Lieutenant Commander Torch's voice was tight with controlled panic. Captain, we're detecting massive gravitational distortions at the edge of the system. Something big is coming through fold space. The main display shifted to show long-range sensors picking up energy signatures that dwarfed both the human and Chthoni fleets. Whatever was approaching possessed technology that made their recent advances look like crude tools by comparison. Vexhana's form shifted to configurations suggesting extreme agitation. The void architects respond to probability cascade events. Your rapid militarization has attracted their attention ahead of their predicted awakening schedule. Lysander stared at the tactical display showing three distinct forces converging on humanity's home system, the human fleet they had built to defend themselves, the Chthoni force demanding they submit to restrictions, and now something that apparently viewed consciousness itself as a cosmic error to be corrected. How long until they arrive? He asked quietly. 6 hours, 43 minutes by your measurements, Vexhana replied. Choose quickly, humans. Submit to restrictions or face the harvest your acceleration has brought upon all conscious life in this sector. The Void Architect vessels emerged from fold space like living nightmares, their forms defying human understanding of physics and aesthetics. Each ship was a writhing mass of dark matter and twisted geometry, surfaces that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, creating optical illusions that made even augmented human vision struggle to process their true shapes. Admiral Thaddeus Grimm watched from the bridge of the HSS Indomitable as his sensors registered energy readings that exceeded anything in their databases. "Sweet merciful gods," whispered Commander Vale, his usual confidence shaken as the tactical displays attempted to catalog the approaching fleet. "There are hundreds of them, each one the size of a space station. How are we supposed to fight that?" Dr. Serafina Kane worked frantically at her analysis station, comparing the Void Architect energy signatures with every scrap of data the Ethereals had provided. The results were uniformly terrifying. "Their technology operates on principles we don't understand," she reported, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what they faced. "They're not just using dark matter as fuel, they're weaponizing the fundamental forces that hold reality together." Captain Lysander Voss coordinated the human response from the Prometheus, his crew working with mechanical precision despite the existential dread that permeated the command bridge. Around him, the display showed humanity's most advanced warships taking defensive positions, their quantum pulse cannons and adaptive shielding systems representing the pinnacle of ethereal-enhanced technology. Against the approaching darkness, they looked like toys. Nexarch Vexhana's holographic presence flickered with interference patterns as the Void Architect fleets approached disrupted normal spacetime. "Your time for decision has expired," the Cathani declared, its form showing configurations that registered as profound regret. "The architects have detected the probability cascade originating from your development. They will sterilize this entire sector to prevent further contamination." "Then we fight together," Lysander replied, surprising himself with the conviction in his voice. "Human, Cathani, whatever's left of the Ethereals, we face them as allies or we fall separately." The Cathani's response was interrupted by a new transmission, this one coming from deep space in a direction that held no known star systems. The voice that emerged from the communication arrays was hauntingly familiar despite months of silence. "This is Zyxtera of the Ethereal Collective," the transmission began, though the harmonic patterns were strained, distorted by what sounded like extreme distress. "To our human companions and Cathani observers, the awakening cycle has begun prematurely. Our calculations show a 14% probability of successful resistance under current conditions." Dr. Kane gasped as additional data streams accompanied the transmission. "They're transmitting real-time tactical analysis of the Void Architect fleet. The information they're providing, it's like having a roadmap to their weaknesses." "Such as they are," Zyxtera continued. "The architects exist partially outside conventional spacetime. Direct energy weapons have minimal effect. Kinetic impacts are absorbed by their dimensional shifting capabilities. However, they are vulnerable to consciousness-based attacks, to the application of directed sentient will through technological amplification." Admiral Grimm studied the tactical data flooding their systems. "They're telling us to use our minds as weapons?" "More than that," Serafina said, her analysis revealing deeper implications. "They're describing how to weaponize consciousness itself through our neural interfaces. The same enhancement systems that worried the Cathani about our psychological development, they're the key to fighting beings that view consciousness as an aberration." Vexhana's form pulsed with patterns the translation system identified as shocked recognition. "The Ethereals planned this contingency from the beginning. They knew the rapid militarization would attract architect attention, and they equipped your species with the specific tools needed to combat existential threats." The first Void Architect vessels reached the outer edge of the solar system, their presence immediately warping spacetime in ways that made navigation instruments scream warnings. Where they passed, the very fabric of reality seemed to deteriorate, leaving zones of twisted physics that would persist long after their departure. "All human vessels," this is Admiral Grimm, the elderly commander's voice carried across every ship in the fleet. "Activate consciousness amplification protocols. Whatever these things are, they made a mistake when they decided to threaten a species that's spent its entire existence fighting impossible odds. Lysander felt the neural interface systems engaging throughout the human fleet, billions of enhanced minds suddenly linked through quantum-entangled networks that turned individual consciousness into something approaching collective will. The sensation was overwhelming, like touching the surface of a star and discovering it was only the beginning of infinite depths. Cathani vessels are moving to support positions, Vale reported, his voice tinged with amazement. Vexhana's fleet is providing targeting data and defensive screens. The Ethereals were right about one thing, Seraphina said quietly, watching as human warships began moving with coordination that transcended any training or doctrine. We are something unprecedented in galactic history. The Void Architect fleet reached Mars orbit, their forms beginning to exert the reality distortion effects that would strip away the foundations of conscious existence itself. But rising to meet them was something they had never encountered before, a species that had learned to use its own consciousness as a weapon, backed by technology specifically designed to amplify the very quality they sought to eliminate. The battle for the future of sentient life in the galaxy was about to begin. The battle raged across space-time itself, reality bending and twisting as human consciousness weapons tore through Void Architect formations that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Captain Lysander Voss felt the neural interface burning through his enhanced nervous system as he directed the Prometheus in maneuvers that defied conventional physics, his mind linked to thousands of other human officers in a collective awareness that stretched the boundaries of individual identity. Dr. Seraphina Kane watched in horrified fascination as her consciousness amplification theories were put into practice on a cosmic scale. Each human vessel had become a focus for directed sentient will, their crew's minds merged into targeting systems that could strike at the fundamental patterns of existence that gave the Void Architects form. But the effort was consuming them. Around her, crew members collapsed at their stations as the neural interface systems demanded more than human brains could safely provide. "We're losing people," Commander Vale reported, his voice strained as he fought to maintain individual awareness while participating in the collective targeting matrix. 30% casualties across the fleet, and those numbers are climbing. The consciousness weapons are burning out our neural pathways faster than our medical systems can compensate. The main display showed the tactical situation with crystalline clarity that only came through enhanced perception. The Void Architect fleet was being systematically destroyed, their reality-distorting forms unable to maintain coherence when faced with directed attacks from consciousness-based weapons. But each victory came at a cost measured in human minds pushed beyond their biological limits. Admiral Grimm's voice crackled across the communication networks, his words carrying the weight of command decisions that balanced individual lives against species survival. "All vessels, maintain firing protocols. The ethereal analysis shows the Architect command structure is vulnerable to concentrated consciousness assault. We can end this, but it requires everything we have." Nexarch Vexhana's holographic presence flickered in and out of stability as the battle's reality distortions affected even quantum-entangled communication. "Human fleet, your casualties are approaching sustainability thresholds. The hegemony offers to assume primary assault responsibilities." "Negative," Lysander replied, feeling the collective human will flowing through him like molten metal. "Our people volunteered for this. We finish what we started." The tide of battle shifted as human consciousness weapons reached peak effectiveness. Void Architect vessels began imploding as their extra-dimensional existence collapsed under sustained assault from weaponized sentient will. But the effort was literally burning out human minds, leaving crew members in vegetative states as their enhanced nervous systems overloaded. Seraphina watched her own readings climb into dangerous territory as she coordinated the consciousness amplification networks. The neural interface was magnificent and terrible, allowing individual human awareness to touch the fundamental structures of reality itself. But human brains had evolved for survival on a single planet, not for the manipulation of cosmic forces. "The primary Architect vessel is beginning reality distortion cascade," Vale reported, his words coming in gasps as he fought to maintain consciousness while channeling forces that dwarfed stellar output. "If it completes the cascade, it will create a zone of anti-existence that spreads at light speed." The implications were clear. The Void Architect's final gambit was to create an expanding sphere of nothingness that would consume the solar system and continue growing until it devoured everything capable of supporting conscious life. It was defeat through mutual annihilation, acceptable to beings that viewed consciousness as cosmic aberration. All vessels, concentrate fire on the primary target, Admiral Grimm ordered. Maximum consciousness amplification. Override all safety protocols. Lysander felt the collective human will focusing to a point of unimaginable intensity. Across the fleet, enhanced minds burned themselves out in a final surge of directed consciousness that struck at the heart of the reality distortion cascade. The effect was visible even to normal human perception. Space itself seemed to solidify around the primary architect vessel, reality reasserting its normal patterns through the application of pure sentient will. The Void Architect command ship collapsed into conventional space-time and then into nothingness, taking with it the expanding zone of anti-existence that would have consumed the galaxy. Around it, the remaining architect vessels lost cohesion as their collective consciousness network fragmented, leaving them vulnerable to conventional weapons that finished the destruction. But victory came at a price that would echo through human history. Half the human fleet was crewed by officers in various states of neural collapse, their minds sacrificed to save not just their species but conscious life throughout the galactic sector. Those who survived would carry the memories of touching cosmic forces that no biological intelligence was meant to comprehend. Serafina slumped at her station, her neural interface finally shutting down as emergency medical protocols kicked in. Around her, the bridge of the Prometheus was filled with the quiet sounds of medical teams treating crew members whose minds had been pushed beyond all reasonable limits. Status report, Lysander managed, his own consciousness slowly reassembling into individual awareness after hours of collective existence. The Void Architect fleet is eliminated, Vale reported weakly. Human casualties are significant. But we won. Against all probability mathematics, we actually won. In the aftermath of victory, as human medical teams worked to save what minds they could and the galaxy slowly returned to normal space-time, one question remained: what would become of a species that had learned to use consciousness itself as a weapon of cosmic destruction? 3 years after the Battle of Sol, Captain Lysander Voss stood in the memorial gardens of Luna Station, watching Earth turn slowly in the viewport while struggling with memories that felt both his own and borrowed from 1,000 other minds. The neural interface scars along his skull had healed, but the psychological wounds from collective consciousness remained. Around him, similar markers bore the names of crew members who had sacrificed their individual awareness to save galactic civilization, their minds now existing in care facilities that resembled temples more than hospitals. Dr. Serafina Kane approached through the garden paths, her own movement careful and deliberate in ways that spoke to neurological damage that could be managed but never fully repaired. In her hands, she carried the latest analysis reports from the Galactic Consciousness Institute, humanity's contribution to the wider cosmic community that had emerged from the ashes of the Void Architect threat. The Ethereals have finally explained their full strategy, she said, settling onto the bench beside him with the careful movements of someone whose nervous system had been rebuilt twice in the past year. They identified over 40 species throughout galactic history with the specific psychological profile needed to weaponize consciousness. We were the only ones who survived the process. Lysander nodded, unsurprised by the revelation. The Ethereals' long-term planning had become legendary among the species that now looked to humanity for protection against cosmic-level threats. What happened to the others? Most were destroyed by early contact with Void Architect scouts, Serafina replied, accessing data through neural interfaces that were far more sophisticated than the crude systems they had used during the battle. A few managed to defend themselves but at the cost of their entire civilization's sanity. We're apparently unique in maintaining functional consciousness after weaponizing it. Through the memorial garden, other veterans of the consciousness wars moved slowly, some accompanied by caregivers, others managing their neural reconstruction with the patient dignity of soldiers who had seen too much. The human species had been forever changed by their role as galactic defenders, their enhanced minds capable of feats that bordered on the miraculous but at costs that were still being calculated. Commander Orion Vale approached from the station's command section, his own scars hidden beneath the uniform of the new Galactic Defense Coordination. We're receiving requests from 17 different species for consciousness weapon development programs, he reported. The Cathani hegemony wants to establish joint research facilities. Even the ethereals are asking for technical specifications on our neural interface systems. Are we going to share? Lysander asked, though he already knew the answer. The decision had been made collectively by the survivors of the consciousness wars, their enhanced minds reaching consensus through processes that transcended normal democratic procedures. Limited sharing, Vale confirmed. Enough to provide basic consciousness-based defense capabilities, but not enough to create another species capable of reality manipulation through directed will. That particular burden remains ours alone. Serafina smiled sadly, watching as a group of children played in the station's recreational areas, their laughter carrying through the memorial garden like an echo of simpler times. These were the first generation of humans born after the consciousness wars, their neural development already showing adaptations that would allow them to safely interface with the cosmic-scale awareness systems their parents had pioneered. The galaxy is safer, she said quietly. Void architect activity has dropped to nearly zero in sectors where human consciousness weapon platforms are stationed. We've created a new equilibrium where conscious life can exist without existential threat. At the cost of our innocence, Lysander replied, feeling the weight of memories that belong to thousands of different minds, the collective consciousness experience having left him with fragments of identity that would never fully sort themselves into individual awareness. Vale checked his chronometer, his enhanced perception automatically calculating time across multiple star systems where human consciousness weapon operators maintain their lonely vigils. The Council of Conscious Species is convening next week to formalize the new cosmic security protocols. They want human representatives to chair the Consciousness Threat Response Committee. We'll send delegations, Lysander agreed, though the thought of more responsibility for galactic security filled him with exhaustion that went deeper than mere fatigue. Humanity had gained unimaginable power and used it to save countless civilizations, but in doing so had become something both more and less than they had been. As the memorial garden settled into the artificial twilight of Luna Station's day cycle, the three survivors of humanity's first cosmic war sat in contemplative silence, each carrying the weight of knowledge that consciousness itself could be weaponized, that reality could be reshaped through directed will, and that sometimes salvation came at prices that transformed the saved beyond recognition. In the distance, Earth continued its ancient rotation, its surface now dotted with consciousness amplification facilities and neural interface research centers, home to a species that had learned to touch the fundamental structures of existence but could never again view themselves as merely human. They were something new in the galaxy, the guardians of conscious life, forever changed by the responsibility they had accepted and the power they had wielded to preserve the possibility of thought itself. The stars wheeled overhead, carrying within their light the knowledge that somewhere in the cosmic dark, human minds stood watch against threats that existed beyond normal understanding, their consciousness weaponized and eternally vigilant, ensuring that the universe remained a place where thought could flourish and dreams could take root among the infinite possibilities of space and time.